Okay, this is before they awaken, King David's lost crown, and it begins with a prologue, and the prologue begins with a quote that you've heard many times before. Matthew 2, chapter 2, verse 1 through 2. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Chapter 1, a wolf called Mithra, the city of Ecbatana, the Parthian Empire. The Parthians called the sun Mithra. If you squint just right, you can see him up there with his white horses as they draw his chariot across the sky. Mithra is more than just our source of heat and light. Mithra is a living thing. He is the all-seeing eye of Ahura Mazda. And Ahura Mazda is the creator of all things, the unknowable that fills all time and space, from whose bosom is formed the earth and all creatures thereon, and the sky and all that resides therein, in much the same way as ice is formed from water. When the time is right, say the Parthians, the boundless Ahura Mazda will cause his seed to be deposited within the womb of a virgin, so that she might bear a son. She is Eridat Fedri, also called Visap Taravari, which means the all-destroying, for no evil can stand before her. Her son shall be called Saoshyant, which means world savior, and his birth will be heralded by great signs in the heavens, and he shall be king of all the earth below and of all the sky above. It is written in the Bundahishn and the Avesta, so it shall be. On a certain day, when Mithra was bathing the earth with his brilliance in an especially splendid fashion, two brothers were walking in the forest, one older than the other. Both were sons of the king. The king had sent them out on a quest. He sent them out to hunt a great wolf. One of the sons was called Orides, a handsome lad, but with an arrowhead birthmark over his left eye and a scar that ran the length of his torso, chin to groin, that came from somewhere, no one seemed to know where. Orides was different than the other boys, preferring books and study to the rough courtyard games. And this concerned his father. What will happen when he becomes a man, the father wondered. Will he be too weak and kind-hearted to be a successor to a kingdom? The king consulted the Magi, and it was suggested that the boy be entrusted to his older brother, who was the diametric opposite. The older brother was growing tall and strong and excelled in all the games of wrestling and weapons training in which the younger son was deficient. His name was Gotarzes. Gotarzes was approaching his mid-teens and nearly ready to be given a commission in the Parthian army. "Watch over the boy," the king instructed Gotarzes. "Teach him the ways of a man. Teach him how to hunt the wolf, for no animal is more cunning and no prize is valued as a wolf pelt." Such a great prize it would be for a young boy. Befitting a prince, Orides was the favored son and the one to whom the throne would pass. This because the Magi recommended him to be the king, the one who would rule in wisdom and moderation. One such magus, Belteshazzar, loved Orides as if he were his own son. Belteshazzar was wise in the mystic ways of things and had taken it upon himself to mentor the young prince. Mithra is a great hunter. Carvings abound throughout the city. They all show Mithra thrusting a knife into the neck of a giant wolf, and so must his son be. Would any father do less? "A wolf pelt will soon be mine. Then we will see who the king favors," joked Gotarzes, but he was not joking because he was aware of his father's favoritism, though his father never spoke it. "Not if my arrow finds its heart first," said Orides. "I intend to hang its tail from my headband so that all can see that I am the better hunter." "Well, for truth, you are not the better hunter, my little one-eyed brother," put forth Gotarzes. He knew full well that Orides could see just fine out of that shaded-over eye. "That is why we are here," he continued. They were approaching what could only be described as a playground for sylphs and fairies, green so green it hurt the eyes, as people so often say of the forests of Ecbatana. And a pool of water from a creek-sized waterfall that settles so calmly beneath its fall that its basin can be seen with complete clarity. The pool was formed by a collection of gray snags damming up the creek and transforming its banks into new creations as dozens of tiny sprigs send their roots through moss, wood, even solid rock in search of the water and fertile soil underneath, as if a superior intelligence might be guiding them. We are here because Father wants me to teach you the things I know, which may not be possible. Father wants me to transform you into a prince. Father may have given me a task impossible. Without saying a further word, Gotarzes calmly raised his bow and let fly with an arrow, because he had seen something. Orides had not seen it in the movements of the leaves and the flashes of light and shadow. The amber red of the wolf's body blended so well with the foliage that Orides had not noticed the young pup. An expert eye was needed to observe it as its muscles tensed to run, but it hesitated, being too young to realize how dangerous it was to stand even at a distance from this particular enemy. Unknown to the young pup, this enemy did not need massive jaws to kill, did not need muscled legs to close distances quickly. This enemy was one that could kill simply by standing there. This enemy needed no reason to kill. The pleasure of the act was reason enough. The wolf yelped and cried in confusion as sudden pain ripped through its body, and it ran as if it could outrun the thing that was causing the pain, and it tripped over its 4 feet that had suddenly stopped working and fell helplessly into the deep part of the creek. The young wolf wasn't growling or snapping as the two predators ran toward it. All its strength was needed to keep its head above water. As the two-legged creatures approached, they did things the wolf could not understand. One of them slipped on the moss-covered rock and fell headlong into the water. The other waded in and gently lifted the little pup up and carried it to safety. The pup was not even half its full adult size. That was the reason young Orides was able to carry it with such ease, and that was why it had not run when first receiving the scent of the two upright creatures its mother knew full well to fear. "Fool!" yelled Gotarzes. "The mother is stalking you. She will rip you to pieces. Drop it. Drop it and run. I speak what I know. Drop it and run." The reason the mother did not attack is one that can only be guessed at. Perhaps it knew that it could do nothing. Perhaps there were other cubs that needed to be protected. Or, with an intelligence beyond that of any of the other forest creatures, perhaps the mother wolf knew her baby was in protective hands. Its eyes continued to follow and watch as Orides ran from Gotarzes. Gotarzes was slowed by the injury sustained in the fall, and limped as he ran, spewing his fury in words that resounded off the trees and cliffs of the dense forests that abutted the southern edge of Ecbatana. As the city rose upland from the shoreless Mazandaran Sea, and finally, as the forest came to an end and the king's castle came into view, the mother wolf said goodbye with her eyes and slowly took backward steps into the denseness of the trees and stood there for the longest time, ears pasted back. Then, trusting, hoping she was right in what was really the only decision possible, she loped away to care for and protect the rest of her litter. Her instincts were correct. The human predator who had her little baby would protect it. It was a predisposed part of the young human's nature that even he had not known about until the moment it was tested. My son, how can you possibly wear a crown and become a warrior capable of defending a kingdom if you cannot even kill game?" said the king to young Orides. Love seemed to be the measure of his words as he looked upon his son. In a cage off to the left was the wolf cub lying face between its paws. Its eyes were closed, except on occasion when it would open them to nervously look to and fro with just the eyes moving. Its breathing was fast and unnatural. Its eyes trembled with each quick breath, partly out of fear, partly pain. When touched, it vomited and peed, so great was its terror. Tied around its midsection was a white cloth marking the wound in red, said the king. "But we will consider that matter at a later date, for now we must decide what to do with the matter of the wolf and to whom it belongs." He looked at Gotarzes, who stood on the left. Gotarzes bent to one knee. "Your Majesty," The wolf is mine. My eyes marked it. My arrow brought it down. Orodes will not deny it. King Artabanus could have decided the matter on his own, without the convening of a formal court, but he was a king resolved to treat all matters in a fair way, especially when it came to matters of his own family. He spent long moments stroking the furrows of his square beard. He looked at Orodes. Orodes, my son, is this true? Was it, in fact, Gotarzes' arrow? The wolf should be mine, father, because I am the one who saved it, Orodes replied. Gotarzes intends to kill it and make a pelt out of it. Answer my question. Was it, in fact, Gotarzes' arrow? Yes, father. If I should decide in your favor, what do you intend to do with the animal? I will care for it, and when it heals, I will set it free so that it can go back to its mother and live among its own kind in the forest, as Ahura Mazda intended, so that it can then become a predator to our own animals and livestock, even our children? Please, father, let me do this. Please. But why? I really don't understand. Help me to understand. I don't know. It's just something I need to do it. Young Prince Orodes almost grabbed the animal and ran with it. So strong was this protectiveness swelling within his chest. Your pardon, Majesty, good father, said Gotarzes. We all know that a wolf is a wild creature and as such can never be trusted. True, it is a puppy now. It's cute and it's fluffy. But the time will come when he will mature, and a time will come when he will turn against us, because you can never take the wild out of the wild. It was you that taught me that, father. This is true, my son, said the king to Orodes, with kind eyes, but eyes of wisdom. Please, father, let me do this, said Orodes, one final plea. Let me have the wolf. It shall be my responsibility. King Artabanus gave out an audible sigh, reflective of an obvious troubled heart. Let the Magi decide, he finally said. I am fearful that my son does not have the fortitude to be a king. Thankfully, the task of choosing a successor to a kingdom is not mine alone, for in Parthia, it is to the Magi that the duty falls to nominate and install a king. That is why we call them the kingmakers, for without their blessing, even a prince cannot wear a crown. So in the same manner, I will let the Magi decide this issue. He gestured to an old man standing in front of a Chaldean doorway, a square entrance to a darkened place wherein potions are mixed and spells are cast, wherein no common man or woman has ever dared venture. Belteshazzar invited the king. The elderly magus stepped forward, a gentle smile on his face. He was adorned in the attire of a magus, elf-like, the striped and fluted trousers, shirt with puffy sleeves, the high conical cap adorned with stars and half-moons. They were clothes worn and faded from years of washings, said Belteshazzar in the guttural harshness of Parthian speak, but strengthened with the same gentleness that was in his smile after first bowing to the king. Your Highness, there is a story that is told of a prince in the land of the rising sun, the land of the fierce yellow-skinned warriors. This prince was called Siddhartha, who was the favorite of the king's sons. But like your son, Siddhartha was a different sort of a child. His mind was filled with many questions. He wanted to know why life had so many cruelties and why one creature must kill another to survive. Prince Siddhartha felt sadness even when an insect would die. What kind of a son do I have, that he be so kind-hearted, wondered the king, just as you are wondering, my lord. What kind of a man will he grow up to be? The story is very similar to ours. Prince Siddhartha had a cousin. His name was Devadatta. Devadatta thought only of play and shooting arrows, so the king made arrangements for the children to play together, hoping Siddhartha would mature in the same way. One day, when the children were out at play, a single goose flew overhead, having been separated from its flock. It was very large and very beautiful. Devadatta raised his bow and aimed his arrow at the goose. Siddhartha called out, "No, Devadatta, don't hurt it." But it was too late. With a sharp cry, the goose came tumbling out of the sky. The children ran up to it and discovered the bird still lived. And before Devadatta could react, Siddhartha had gathered it up and ran toward home in the same manner as Orodes had done. The king and the queen saw him running and were afraid something terrible had happened. "What is it?" cried the king. "Where is Devadatta? Is he all right? What are you carrying?" Before Siddhartha could answer, Devadatta came running up, screaming for Siddhartha to give back his bird. "He stole it from me. It is my bird. It was me who shot it down." "Is this true, my son?" questioned the king. "Yes, father," said Siddhartha, "but it is mine now because I plan to save its life. Devadatta plans to kill it." The king was deeply troubled and unable to make a decision. So he called together his wise men in the same way that you have called upon the Magi. "I will let them decide the case," he said. "Their decision shall be final." The wise men questioned each boy. Siddhartha admitted that Devadatta shot it down, but claimed that the bird should be his because he wanted to save its life. One of the wise men asked Prince Siddhartha what he planned to do with the bird when it was nursed back to health. "If they chose him," said Siddhartha, "I will turn it loose to live freely among its own kind." The wise men conferred briefly with one another, then decided thusly that the bird belongs to the boy who will save its life, not the one who will destroy it. "Pray tell, what became of this prince called Siddhartha?" asked King Artabanus. "He became a great spiritual teacher, some say the greatest, the one chosen by Ahura Mazda to explain the good news of his future kingdom to the people of the rising sun. Some have compared him to the coming Saoshyant. In their land, he was called the Buddha." King Artabanus thanked the Magi and told them he no longer needed them to make the decision. "The king should have the courage to make his own decision," he said. "My decision is this. The wolf belongs to Orestes because Orestes intends to save it." Gotarzes began to protest, but King Artabanus raised up his hand. "It is decided," he said. "The wolf shall be given to Orestes." "Yes, your majesty." While making a decision of law, the king mandated that even his sons should address him formally.